Language is what defines you. Language is what makes you different from other people. The question I have been asking myself, and which makes me very critical about all of you young people who are in the university, you are graduates, some of you are graduates, how uncritical we have become on this continent about ourselves. How we have accepted to continue to insult ourselves even after so-called independence. When the colonialists came here, the best way to control a person is to control him or her culturally. Deny him or her the capacity to intellectualize in his own language. Deny him or her his or her culture. Because language is rooted in culture. There is no language which is not rooted in culture. Any language which is not rooted in culture is very difficult to develop it. Let me tell you, Esperanto, you must have heard about it. Esperanto is an artificial language which was created by an Italian mathematician in 1881. 1881, Esperanto was created. And the objective of the creator was to make it an instrument of communication in international fora in Europe.
Bambaleje, bambaleje, ala ala bambutano. Sangkan bebe cembuji, bebe ma bekunjo la koloni baru baru.
As prospective leaders, we have to think clockwise, not anti-clockwise. And we deem it necessary that, yes, incorporating our national language in our education system will help us move forward. If you look at all the countries around the world, which are moving forward faster, is because they are using their own language in everything that they are doing in their businesses. So why are we still very stick to a foreign language? I feel it very bad in school when children are forced to speak English, otherwise they will be beaten, they will be punished. I feel very bad when I see students speaking Mandinka or Wolof and they are punished for that, where they are forced to speak English. It is in our national policy 2016-2030 that national languages should be used up to grade 4, but we think that's not adequate. At least it should be expanded to senior school, even to the tertiary education. So he is here. He is an expert in linguistics, and I was made to understand that he developed full curriculum about national languages, which should have been used by our government, but unfortunately, whatsoever reason has come, it was not adopted. So he will capacitize us on the team, and he is not only a political leader, but also a scholar. So before the end of this session, we will learn a lot that will arm us during our nationwide tour. So I'm sure we all know him. He is a national figure, Honorable Seedia Jatta. He is not a stranger to any one of us. So he will take us through everything that we require, that we need, as far as the theme of the tour is concerned. So, Honorable Jatta, thank you for accepting our request. You should have rejected it, that you are a busy somebody or you have other errands. But the moment I wrote, you accepted it and even called me that we can fix our own day and our own time. That tells a lot about you. So we thank you for that acceptance and also making it all the way from your destiny up to here. And there is nothing concerning transportation that we give you. If we were told about breakfast, he said no, it's okay. So that's a lot that we can learn from him. So thank you once again. And also thank you for making it to this session. Yes. So He, he is going to do the presentations. It will be in two folds. After his presentation, just want to retain you just for 5 or 10 minutes, and we orient you about the rules of the tour and other things concerning the tour, the subcommittees, and what are the things expected from you. And that will be spearheaded by the Honorable Chairperson of the tour, Vice President Anamanga, and also Vice Chair Abubakar Dem. So, Honorable, we can set the ball rolling.
How happy I am to have you like this in front of me after more than 40 years of my struggle to do what he is talking about. Let me update you and let me also tell you something to give you insight into the language situation in this country and Africa generally. We have to put the question squarely. Your theme is to be capacitized to go and sensitized. But my question to you is, how many of you are literate in your languages? How many of you can read and write in your own language? How many of you? So nobody. You can? Okay, one out of I don't know how many X number. Okay, so let me just start by saying this to you. Why I studied what I have studied. When I went to university in France, I started with social sciences. I did philosophy and sociology. That was my first option. But I was on French scholarship, a scholarship that came to me direct, not to the Gambia government. Because I did an examination, I did extremely well. I had the highest French mark. No mark goes beyond that in France. So they offered me a scholarship straight. When I was going there, I questioned myself, what was I going to study? Of what use was that going to be to my country? Then I was very interested in things that makes people critical, things that make you think, and that's social sciences, philosophy in particular, and sociology in addition. So I did sociology, but the French government didn't know what I was doing until when my results were sent to them, those who were in charge of my scholarship. And when they received my result, they were very angry that I was not doing arts. And you know what that means? They offered this scholarship not for nothing. They offered this scholarship to go and study their culture. In other words, they offer you to deculturalize you. And I was not doing that, so they were not happy. I was not doing anything to promote their culture. So the director wrote to me and said, after receiving this letter, if you stay in France, whatever happened to you was your responsibility. I wrote back, I say, I think you made a mistake when you wrote your letter. You should have included my ticket in your letter. I know better than you do what serves my country better. Then he wrote back and apologized profusely. Then I wrote, I said, do you consider linguistics to be arts? He said, yes. I clapped for myself. So I didn't want to do literature because my first, second year, I was doing their literature, 19th century literature. So I didn't abandon my soul because I was already finishing. I was in the final year of my social science degree. Philosophy was my major, sociology was my minor, and other things. So I completed that. But at the same time, after receiving their letter, I registered in linguistics. And they allowed me in the second year of linguistics degree. So after completing my social science degree, I abandoned that. I became more interested in linguistics because I have found a tool that I can use this country to develop the languages of this country and Africa as a whole. So after my social science, I continued linguistics. I had my first degree, my master's degree. In France, you had to do a postmaster's diploma that they call DA, Diplôme d'études approfondies, to qualify for a doctoral course. So I did that. And I came here for data collection. But when I came here, I found that Curriculum Development Center was created by UNESCO on a project. And they created within it a unit for the development of national languages. But there was no linguist there. So they couldn't do anything for 3 years. So when I finished my postmaster's diploma for a doctoral course and went back to France, I questioned myself, why was I doing a doctorate when my services were cryingly needed in the Gambia in the Curriculum Development Center? So I abandoned my doctoral course. I came back. And then when I came back, then I was a qualified teacher on study leave without pay. The director posted me to the president's office. That was under the First Republic. I refused to go there. He said, why? I said my qualifications were not relevant to there. They were relevant to the curriculum. He didn't want me to go to Curriculum Development Center. He said, if you go there, I will not pay you. I said, well, if you own the monies of this country, then don't pay me, but I'm going there. And I went. And I was there for 3 months without pay. I didn't care. I was so enthusiastic about the issue of developing our languages. The government had chosen 3 of them, Mandinka, Wolof, and Fula. First, I developed an orthography for them. That was just a question of 1 month. And then after that, we started developing learning materials in these languages, each of them. And then we identified 9 experimental schools, 3 for each language throughout the country. After developing the materials, normally they should have been printed. The government should have printed them, but they refused. You can imagine. And we were applying, implementing their own policy, but they didn't print our materials. That did not discourage us. I'm very good at writing, handwriting. I was a teacher, and I'm still a teacher. And I write very well if I want to. So we produce all the materials handwritten. For the first year, we ran our experiments. Other difficulty was that we had difficulty getting transport to monitor our classes because our last class was in Kayai in Nyani, and then Chamen also, Fula Chamen, and then Mandinka Kayai. We struggled the first year, it went well. Second year also, it went well. But before the end of the second year, I asked myself, am I honest to myself? Because no one can run an education system with handwritten materials. It's not possible. Before I came back to Gambia in 1978, I was offered an international job in London at the International African Institute as a research fellow. And that was a research on all the languages of Africa, including Arabic. It was an inventory of all the languages, their interrelationship, and a writing system for all the languages of Africa. The research project had three aspects: writing system, inventory, and a language map of Africa. And the project ran from 1980 to 1982, 3 years. So when I saw that the Gambia government was not serious with implementing their own language policy, I wrote back to London and said, send me a ticket. And that same day they sent me a ticket. I went to London to join the research team, this research on all the languages of Africa. And I didn't resign. I just took my annual study leave, annual leave, 1 month leave. I went, I refused to come back. And they decided to dismiss me in my absence. Of course, they said they wrote to me, but for 3 years I didn't get the letter. But they said they had dismissed me. But unfortunately for them, they still kept on paying my salary into my account. So I came back in 1982 after the Kukoi crisis. I was very careful because although I was not here, but I knew what was happening there politically. I knew what had happened, and I can tell to my fingertips what had happened, what happened. So I didn't take my flight direct to the Gambia. I flew to Dhaka. And from Dhaka, I took a vehicle to go to Genoa. I had a friend who was then working at agriculture. Then he was one of the directors there. So I went there. I didn't want them to know that I was in the Gambia. But the moment I arrived at Farafenye police station, a policeman rose and said, Seedia, let me telephone somebody in. I said, no, don't telephone anybody. So I went to Genoa, I was there, and then 2 days, my friend came from office and said, well, PSC is asking you to go. I said, how did they know that I was in the Gambia? I didn't care. I went home, she took over. I was there for 2 weeks. Then I came back to Banjul, and they called me. PSC, they called me. I went there. I said, the chairman said, you are owing Gambia government. I said, how? He said, well, we have been paying your salary, even though we dismissed you. I said, well, that's your responsibility. You dismissed me and you were paying me. That was not my problem. And you know that anything that went into my account, only myself can withdraw it, not you. Then he said, you are the best qualified person for the post. I said, which post? He said, the post we left for 3 years, we couldn't get anybody to occupy it. I said, well, I didn't apply for it. But then when they caught wind of my presence in the country, the then vice president was, if I'm not mistaken, Bakari Dabo. He was some sort of a friend. And then he mobilized people, and the director of Curriculum Development Center also mobilized his friends to come and prevail on me to go back to Curriculum Development Center. Okay, I went back, but it was the same, no change. That was in 1982, towards the end of 82. 82, 83, I asked for study leave to go back to France to do my doctorate. They granted me study leave without pay. I went. That was the story I told you. I decided to come back because I thought it was important that work in the curriculum development center was undertaken. I came again, I went in at my own risk, but nothing happened. By 86, I decided to resign. And I resigned. And I didn't know Halifa then. I've heard about him, he has heard about me. We knew each other without seeing each other. Sam I knew very well because he was studying Cardiff. I was in France. He was coming to see me. We were doing certain things during holidays. So he would come all the way from Wales to France. So when I resigned, Khalifa was dismissed. Sam was dismissed. He was teaching at the Gambia High School, physics, chemistry, and mathematics. He was teaching. And we decided to come together to form a party because we thought that something needed to be done to bring about change. And that could only happen if you had a party, if you got into politics. That's how we created that party. And I went out of Curriculum Development Center, and then since then I have been in what you all know. But I have not abandoned this issue of language because for me it is fundamental to our being. Language is what defines you. Language is what makes you different from other people. We'll come to that. So for me, the question I have been asking myself, and which makes me very critical about all of you young people who are in the university, you are graduates, some of you are graduates, how uncritical we have become on this continent about ourselves. How we have accepted to continue to insult ourselves even after so-called independence. When the colonialists came here, the best way to control a person is to control him or her culturally. Deny him or her the capacity to intellectualize in his own language. Deny him or her his or her culture. Because language is rooted in culture. There is no language which is not rooted in culture. Any language which is not rooted in culture is very difficult to develop it. Let me tell you, Esperanto, you must have heard about it. Esperanto is an artificial language which was created by an Italian mathematician in 1881. 1881, Esperanto was created. And the objective of the creator was to make it an instrument of communication in international fora in Europe. Because you have so many languages there. To have a neutral language, that's the objective, to have a neutral language. But unfortunately, this language is not rooted in any culture. Nobody recognizes himself or herself in it. So it is there. There are Esperantists, some Esperantists in Europe, some academics who are Esperantists, they speak Esperanto. But there are more academics in Europe who speak Swahili now than anything else. And that is your tragedy. I'm not part of it. Because me, I have been so fortunate that I had my first lessons in formal education in my own language under colonial rule. That is the paradox. Because in 1953, UNESCO made a declaration that it is the right of every child in the world to begin formal education in his or her own language. So the colonialists established 3 experimental schools in the Gambia. One in Faraba, one in Bakadaji in Jimara, and one in Bajakunda in Wuli, to teach Mandinka, only Mandinka. And I was fortunate, my father sent me to school, and I started learning in Mandinka. You know the reason why it has been agreed all over the world that any child who begins formal education in the mother tongue, but we don't say mother tongue because it is not true. Sometimes the mother tongue does not coincide with the child's language. My mother was Fula, but she married my father who was Mandinka. So the language in my home is not Fula, it's Mandinka. So my mother tongue is not Mandinka, my mother tongue is Fula, even though I know how to speak it. So we say L1, that is the child's first language. If you go to Banjul, you go to Tobacco Road, many Mandinka children from Badibu, whose parents are from Badibu, they speak Wolof and not Mandinka. I taught in Kampama school. Children from Kampama, generally, they speak Wolof, not Mandinka. So their first language, their mother tongue is Mandinka, but their first language is not Mandinka. That's why we say L1 technically. You cannot be wrong. We say a child's L1 can be any language which is natural to him or her. So I started learning Mandinka. For 2 years, the school collapsed. But the 2 years were very effective. And for 2 years, I went back home again. And this time, I became a shepherd. My father had a lot of cows, many. So I was sometimes even grazing in Senegal for months, for 2 years. I want you to mark this very well. 2 years I was in school. 2 years I was out. I never saw a book again. But after 2 years, my father said he vowed that he would send me to school back. He would send me to Basse. And I went to Basse. Then you don't have primary, you have standard 1, standard 2, standard 3. Do you know which class they sent me to? Standard 3. And I was better than every child in that school, in that class. Even though I went out of school for 2 good years without seeing a book. And I was not even learning English. English was just a subject, sometimes we learned it. But everything was done in Mandinka. But I was better, not only in that class, but even in the end of the school class, that's grade standard 7. Each time they gave the students their mathematics, they couldn't do it. They would come for me in my standard 3, and I would go and do it. And that's why sometimes now I question who am I now? Because I thought I was better than I am now. Not now, even when I went to high school in Ghana. When I was in Ghana, I used to ask myself, what has happened to me? So, but the trick is, because I started learning in my own language, cognitively, I was grounded. I was so grounded that I can learn anything with ease. And that's why even though I went out of school for 2 years, I came back, it was as if I had never left school, because cognitively it is already there. I never began my education in a foreign language like you people did. So that is it. The trick that the Tubabs played on us was precisely that. Deny you the capacity to intellectualize in your own language. If I ask any one of you here, I put down $1 million here. Write a sentence in Wolof. If you are a Wolof speaker, write a sentence in Mandinka if you are a Mandinka speaker. Write a sentence in Fula. No one of you would do it. You would miss $1 million. Why? Because you have never learned to think in your language. You speak it. There are two ways of speaking a language. You speak it consciously and unconsciously. You speak your languages unconsciously because you don't know its grammar. You don't even know the items. Like if you are a constructor, a builder, the blocks that you are using to build, you don't even know them. You just take them blindly and put them anywhere you think they should be. But if I tell you, why did you put this block here, you cannot tell me why. So that's why you are unconscious speakers of your languages. And that is why it is difficult for you to intellect, because you have been taught to think and intellectualize in English. So if I ask you to talk about philosophy now, you can't, because you have never learned to think. So let alone to intellectualize in your language. So that's a big problem with everybody on the continent. And the tragedy of our situation is, even after so-called independence, even after I say so-called independence, because we are not independent, you all have linguistic chains around your necks. You are all linguistic slaves. Meet two Gambians, they are comfortable to speak English to each other than all of Omandinka, because they intellectualize better in English. One would have thought that immediately after independence, that would be the first issue to be addressed. But it wasn't. And nobody raises questions about it. You know why? Because your alien language has given you fantastic privileges, would put you above the people you are supposed to serve. Language, English, is the only language that makes you have job. It gives you access to jobs. Even if you are literate in Mandinka, Fula, and Wolof, you have no access to join job. There are many people. And that's my next question to you. Today we are going to think a lot. You came with your team, but I'm going to tell you something else, which is even better than what you are thinking about. I'll come to that. So I'm happy that you have undertaken to do what you have undertaken to do. But the thing is, we are putting a cart before the horse. I don't know how your horse is going to go or your cart is going to go. You are putting your cart before the horse. Because I ask you a question. Who is literate in your life? None of you. And you want to assume that responsibility to go and tell people become literate in your language. Is that not a contradiction? Tell me. You have to be very honest. Time has come for us to be honest in this country. We have to change, otherwise we are losing our humanity. I cry sometimes when I think about what is happening in this country. It's like we are no people, we are no human beings. We are just going like we are pigs. And then we are all proud. When I look at these TVs, I take time to look at all the TVs on Africa. I see these fine, beautiful ladies dressed majestically, speaking French with flamboyance, speaking English with flamboyance. But ask them to speak Fula or Mandinka, they cannot. And I say, who are these people? Who are they talking to? Where is your humanity? It is you who should be fighting this. And you are all silent about it. Me, I have spent all my life struggling against this nonsense. For more than 40 years. People fought me physically in this country. People use jujus against me in this country because of my position language. I will never die. Me, only God can kill me. No one can kill me. I say I'm happy because now you have come to the realization that there is a need for this, but you have missed it. Because you should have capacitized yourself first to become apt in reading and writing in your language. Then you become apt to go and speak to somebody else about the need to learn. You want me to do something you don't even know? Tell me. And what you are talking about, I've just finished doing that. We started it on the 8th of this month, of last month. But I'll come to that also. This sensitization thing, it is done. We started it on the 8th in Basse. First with a radio program, and then with a stakeholders meeting. And when you say stakeholders, it's not just any, they took a representative of Mothers Club, a representative of the Parent Teachers Association, cluster monitors, community leaders, people who like opinion leaders. All these people were at that meeting. We spent a whole day talking about it. People know they are ahead of you. I mean, I tell you that. Because they raise issues which I was amazed. So it's good that you have taken this, your initiative is good. But I'm going to tell you something which is even better. And if you do that, you will leave a legacy. You will be the pioneers of a revolution without which we can never be what we want to be. But I'll come to that. But I want you to understand that the reason why the situation remains as it is since 1965 in the Gambia case is because what the Tuareg was doing, the positions they occupy, and the means that made it possible for them to occupy those positions is the language they use. And it's the same language that we are learning, we have learned, and we are using. Are you not surprised or angry that your constitution says we are all equal in this country? But the same constitution says, but if you cannot speak English, you cannot be a president. You cannot be an MP. You cannot be a councillor. You are happy. No one raises an eyebrow about that. This is what When I sit in my house, I cry. I say, am I living among people, or am I living people with the image of a human person, but they are not human persons? That is what's happening. Look at those who are in the parliament. I know people outside parliament who are 100 times better than them. If they were allowed to go and speak their language, they do better than those who are speaking English there. But because they cannot speak an alien language, which was used as a weapon to suppress them, and we continue to use the same weapon to suppress ourselves, our kids. We are making learning difficult for our kids. Every examination result, the first casualty is language itself, the English itself. Gambian people don't speak English. Do you think you understand English? We don't. That's why everybody is failing English. I know students, they have done 3 times. They have been failing. Mathematics, they are failing. Because language is the issue. You want to tell me that if I are doing mathematics in world, you will fail. You will never fail. And it's possible. Somalia, since 1976, they have been everything in only Somali. Everything from preschool to university. Rwanda, they just started about 2 years ago. Swahili, they had first French as officer, they dropped French, English as officer, they dropped it. Now they decided, they adopted Swahili. You know why? Because their language, major language in Rwanda is Kinyarwanda, which is very closely related to Swahili. It's like they are dialects of the same language. So since Swahili has been developed, it's been taught in the school system in Tanzania for ages. They decided to offer to Swahili. I know only 2 countries on the whole continent of Africa where an African language is uniquely used in the school system and is used as an official language. That is Somalia and Rwanda. Tanzania is not, because Tanzania has English as an official language, its second official language. Even though they could have dropped English long time ago, but still they are still conversating with English. I went there. So it is second official language. Some people would have thought that Tanzania would have been the first country in the world to have an African language and paradoxically, it is the only language, official language in Pan-African Parliament. Pan-African Parliament has 6 languages. Can you imagine? English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Arab, Swahili. These are the 6 languages in Pan-African Parliament. But the Tanzanians and those East Africans who speak Swahili, they don't speak Swahili when they are doing their contributions in the parliament. I was there for 10 years. I asked them, what is wrong with you people? Your language is one of the official languages. You don't speak it. But you speak English. Because for them, the way to show yourself is to speak French, flamboyantly, speak English, big words. I know a politician who came into this country from Germany, he did his doctorate in Germany, and then he got into politics. Each time he wanted to speak, he said, let me warm myself first. You know what he meant by that? Speak English. Warm myself first. This is the tragedy of our situation. So, to come to the crux of the matter, he wanted to be capacitated to go and talk to people about the need to allow that. Is fine. But I say I'm going to update you. Last year, a process started. Government wanted a language in education policy. Started talking about it. And then February this year, I was one of the consultants who drafted that policy. And the policy has been adopted, approved by government. And last month, the ministry created a team in collaboration with the Regional Education Center. I was part of it. And we went around the country to use your word sensitize. Although I don't like the word sensitize. It's misleading. It's not sensitization, and that's why everything is going wrong in this country. People go and talk blah blah blah, and they come. We have sensitized them. It's rubbish. They have sensitized nobody. It's just wasting money, but they are not sensitizing anybody. Anyway, we started in Basse. We had a program on the radio at night, and in the morning, we had a so-called sensitization session with stakeholders the whole day. From there, we went to Janjambure. We had a radio program. They have their community radio station in Brikama. We had a program there in 3 languages, maybe 4 languages, because Sarahule also, somebody spoke in Sarahule there. And then the next morning, we had a big meeting with stakeholders in Janjambure. We divided ourselves into 2 teams in Janjambure. The other team went to Wasu, and they had a meeting with stakeholders. When we finished in Janjambure, we went to Farafenye. We had a radio program there, and then we had an interface with the stakeholders in Kerawan. And then we came back, we went to Mansakonko. We had a radio program. We had an interface with the people there also. Then we came to Brikama. Brikama, we had one here. And the last one, we had it in KM at Ndau Upper Basic. We had in their hall, and then we had a radio program also. So what we are talking about, sensitization has been done several times, because before that, when we were in the process of developing the policy, there was a team of experts. One of them came from Kenya, the other one was a Tubam. I don't know where he came from, but I was not part of that. They had a language survey. They developed a language map of the Gambia to know which language is dominant, which place, all over the country. If you look at the map, it's very interesting. And the interesting thing is about that, you would think that in Fonyi, Jola should be the predominant language. But unfortunately, paradoxically, in Mayoc, where you have that senior secondary school, the dominant language there that people are using, the children particularly, is Fula. Fula. That would be very surprising to you. Language map revealed that. So if you want to teach a Gambian language in Mayoc, Fula should be the language that should teach, because that's everybody speaks. So we have all these presentations were done. Even the language map was presented to the people. They see themselves, even though they cannot read, but they can see the dots because they are colors. Every language is colored. If you go to Basse, for example, there is no Wolof. There is no Wolof in the whole of that area. I'm not saying that Wolof is not spoken there, because there are people who move from here to there. But I mean, those who are settled there, Wolof, a natural language to anybody there, you can't find it. So you cannot teach Wolof there. But Sarahule is, and Mandinka is, and Pular is. Basse is dominantly Fula, Mandinka, and Sarahule. All the Sarahules in this country are there, centered in Basse. There are only 1 or 2 villages, Jalambere, Madina, in Jara East, which are Sarahule speaking. So that has been done. What I'm going to propose to you, I will do what you want to say, but if you really want to become effective, if you really want this to be, because if you go for this capacitization, that's it. But I want you to do something which is you are going to live with, something that is going to go from here into other parts of Africa, particularly your neighboring countries. You as youth, first, you must embrace the idea of becoming literate in your own languages. And your desensitization must be to promote the idea of youth wanting to learn their own languages. You must promote that. If you do that, that's what's going to serve you better than just because this one you can't reinvent it. We have already done that. But this one has never been done, and it is in fact the future of the continent, is the future of Africa. Because whether or not you like it, very soon, and I say very soon, our languages will be spoken in the National Assembly. And in very soon, we are going to drop English as an official language. You think it is impossible. It's happening in Mali. It's happening in Burkina Faso. It's happening in Niger. So it's not impossible. It's the will. You want to become yourself. If you respect yourself, it's very easy to do that. But if you want to continue to disrespect yourself and dehumanize yourself, because denying one's language, denying somebody his or her language is dehumanizing him. We are, whether or not, I'm sorry to say it, I'm not insulting anybody because I'm part of it. I'm in fact worse of it because I speak both French and English. So I'm more dehumanized than you are. But my case, I'm happy in that I've done away with it because I can write even better in my language in Wolof than in English. Because when I write in my language, I find it difficult to translate, to render certain concepts in Mandinka or Wolof in English. You don't know that. Well, when I started this in 1978, so-called intellectuals were attacking me. You are wasting our children's time. They speak their language already. You are saying, what can you learn in this language? You know, they must be mad. I don't know where they were when Sehantejo was fighting with the Tubabs in 1954 when he presented his doctoral thesis on this issue. More than 3 days he was defending his doctoral thesis. And he has also translated the most scientific document into Wolof. That is Einstein's theory of relativity. That is scientific. You science students, you know about that. Einstein's theory of relativity. He translated it into Wolof. And he said sometimes he would find more than one Wolof word for one French word, which means this one is richer. So what is the problem? And Julius Nyerere also translated Macbeth into Swahili. So what is the problem? Ngugi has been writing in Gikuyu and Swahili since years now, those who follow his writings. He said farewell to English years ago now, and he's lecturing in California University. But he's writing Gikuyu or Swahili. That has not changed Google. Even, 2 weeks ago, we had a program. I don't know you people whether you follow the media. You know, Ngugi and Job is a writer in Senegal. He also writes in Wolof. Ngugi writes also in Gikuyu. Huh? Yes. They collectively wrote a congratulatory letter to Jomai Faye. And they suggested to him, now that you are the president of Senegal, when you go to the United Nations, speak Wolof. Get your translator, speak Wolof. You others speak their language. Why would you not speak in your own language? Idi Amin, with all his madness, he did it. He spoke to them in Swahili. So that sparked something here. Young people like you decided to organize a forum in which Ngugi, myself, and Job, and somebody else from Burkina Faso to speak in our own language and then give a summary in English or in French, whichever language you choose. That took place 2 weeks ago, and we are planning another one. And we are also planning a national one where you will sit. Everybody will sit in a hall. I will speak in Mandinka, somebody will speak in Wolof. And you on the floor, you will speak in whatever language you choose to. This is what we are supposed to be doing. Can you imagine if we were doing this from 1965 to now, Gambia would have been in heavens. The reason why we are backward in development experts, I don't know what their thinking is. One of the reasons why I still not developed is the fact that we are not using the tool that is appropriate. How can you be using English in a situation where 80% of the population are totally ignorant of it? And these are the productive forces of the country. All the laws, all the plans that we are making are unknown to them because of the fact that they are written in English. So I would suggest that instead of going to sensitize people to allow children to learn, that is already ongoing. It has been ongoing for years, and now it is even reinforced now, because now is a policy. When the policy starts, maybe next academic year or so, because it requires a big preparation. Can you imagine? You are teaching almost 7 languages in the Gambia, from the ECD, nursery school, to grade 4, in everything in their own language. You know, that's a big work. You have to develop materials in all these languages. So that preparation, and then you have to train the teachers. Not only train, supposing if some of you are teachers here, you have to be taught first how to speak, how to write your own language before you are trained to teach it. Because in the college there are two things: there is academic and the methodology. You have to learn something to cultivate yourself better academically, and then you also have to be equipped how to transfer that knowledge to somebody else, the methodology. So it means that teachers who are going to teach national languages are going to be taught first to understand how to read and write, to understand the elementary structure of their language. And then how do you teach that language? This is big thing. So I'm wondering whether we can even start this project as from next academic year, because the preparations are needed are big. So what do you think of my suggestion? I'm suggesting that instead of going to ask people to allow children, because that is done and we are not even finished. We are ongoing because we are going to deal with National Assembly now. National Assembly Committee on Education. We are going to meet them, to talk to them, like to capacity. So since they are connected people, they go and talk to their people. We have talked to them, but they can do that also. But I'm saying that why not take the initiative? First, you who are here, you must decide and you must accept to be rendered literate in your language. You can start from today if you want to. And then you choose whenever you are available. You continue to do that. It is absolutely necessary, because the policy gives the opportunity to kids after grade 4, where English is going to be used as medium of instruction. National languages will be taught as subjects. Children will have a choice to choose any language in addition to their own if they want to learn any language. And this language will continue to be taught from grade 4 up to end of high school, up to university. And students will have you will have now opportunity to do your grade 12. You can choose a national language to do your grade. That's what is happening in Nigeria. That's what's happening. Yeah. I went to Ghana in the 60s. Since then, they have been learning their language. They have been doing their language in O level, A level. And here we don't even think about it. So now in the policy, that is going to be made possible. You can even offer national languages as subjects in their grade 12 examinations. And at the university, if you are writing your master's dissertation, you can do it on your national language. If you want to do your doctorate, I was doing my doctorate on Soninke. Soninke is Sarahole. I know, and I have my colleagues in France. I know a professor in France who did his doctorate on Bambara, and he speaks Bambara more. I can't speak Bambara, but he speaks Bambara perfect. My prof came here 2011. He came to visit me. He always came to come to Dakar University. Then he phoned me he was going to pay me a visit. I told Professor Kai, who was then here, this vice chancellor. He said, no, it's not your visitor, it's our visitor. We are going to, they lodge him somewhere in their property at Bruceby. And then the next day he came here, came in from 11 o'clock. My prof, if you see him, you would think that he's mad, the way he's dressed. For me, I thought, I am used to him. But if you saw him, you would think that he's a madman. Because all is like, dress does not make a human being. It's this that makes you. He came here, he was lecturing from 11 a.m. Professor K in his suit and necktie, sitting down. A Tubab from France was speaking about Mandinka. He could not understand a word of what he was saying. And we were here up to 5 o'clock. Dialectology of Mandinka from here to Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, Bamako, Mali, and Burkina Faso. Wherever Mandinka is spoken, he did the dialectology of this. And this is a Tuma. And he spoke Mandinka, like me. So they deny you your language. They will come back again and give you back your language. They are coming to teach you. Are you not going to be ashamed of that? Please take the initiative to prevent this country from falling into that big shame. If you want to leave a legacy, assume your responsibilities. It is time for you to say now, no, we are going to learn our languages and we will teach others, but no one will come and teach us our languages. And if you are prepared to do that, I'm prepared to do it with you. Because that's the only legacy. And then from here you can even move. You can create partnership with Senegalese youth. You can create partnership with all the youth around the country. Because eventually that is what is going to give the move towards a linguistic liberation in this country. That's the only way you can leave a legacy. This trip will, once you undertake this trip, that's it, is finished. But when you take what I'm saying, this is a lifelong commitment. I want you to think about it. If you want to do what you want to do, we can still talk about it. You can go. But when you come, for me, even this trip, you should be even talking to your colleagues, your counterparts, youth all over the country. It is time for us to learn our own languages. And that's what we are here for. If they are ready, I'll give you the means to learn your language.